Welcome back to the Success Mix series. Joining us today is Canadian jazz singer and Juno Award winner, Kellylee Evans. Kellylee is known for her gorgeous yet powerful voice, and her music is all about love and life. But her career nearly ended after 2 accidents, a lightning strike and a concussion, causing a fall in her Ottawa home. She's here to share an inspirational message on self-care and finding your own superpowers. It's a message that will speak to anyone who has ever had their life interrupted by a setback and work to overcome it. It is my pleasure to introduce Kellylee Evans.
September became anew, locked in a battle with a chosen few. I'll get some ridiculous philosophy, separate the me from me. June brings sweet escape, I'm free like Virginia, my jump the state. Another realm of servitude, clothed but my mind is nude. High mountains over endless seas, you'll never reach me. Skyscrapers may trap my mind, but I know that I'm built to fly. I'm built to fly. Yeah. Now a citizen of the state, never really ever graduate. Shackled to the road that leads underground, chained to the wheel I run around and round. But I'm like dynamite, blast through with a glimpse of light. I rise like Superman, I know what I am. High mountains over endless seas, you'll never reach me. Skyscrapers may trap my mind, but I know that I'm built to fly. Ooh, I'm built to fly. Yeah. Irreverent Iron Man, dream full color, just like Stan, a real woman. Oh, and I am captain, crew, journeyman, sleek like the cat, I own the night, sly like the bat, I hide from sight, nimble like the spider, I climb, I soar, I remember what I'm fighting for. High mountains over endless seas, you'll never reach me. Skyscrapers may trap my mind, but I know that I'm built to fly. Hi everyone. As you can probably tell, I am obsessed with superheroes because, well, I am a superhero. Or shouldn't I be? I mean, in 2013, I was hit by lightning. And from everything I've ever read, and I've watched a lot of superhero movies, you're supposed to be given amazing superpowers. And so, where are my superpowers? You know, I spent a few months in a wheelchair after that accident, and I wasn't even able to cut my own food. It was just, I couldn't sign autographs. It was just such a huge shift in my existence. And for a long time, people would come up to me all the time and they would be like, you should play the lottery, or like, I wonder if you have superpowers. And for them, it was a real joke. But when I sat in that wheelchair, I was like, where the are my superpowers? And, I really had to come to terms with just my own mortality, because at that time, and I have to admit, even now, like, I definitely had this sense that I was a superwoman. You know, I have 3 kids right now, ages like 20, 17, and 13. And even when I was married, I like wanted to do everything. I thought I could do everything. I was raised by a superwoman. So for me, like that was the ultimate goal. And when my whole entire world completely shifted, I began to realize that I had to think about superpowers in a different way. And so what I've done is I've put together, you know, this superhero building program. At least that's what I'm calling it today. And I wanted to share that with you. And hopefully you will be able to, at the end of this, figure out what your own superpowers are. Would that be okay? I hope you're at home going, yeah. Because like, I don't know about you, but I think we're living through some really crazy times right now. And if there was ever a time when you needed superpowers, now might be it. So what I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit about my story. And the coolest thing about getting to speak in front of you here at the Toronto Real Estate Board is that this story takes place in Toronto. So first, you know, what I've noticed for myself is that I really had to harness certain areas of my superpowerness. And all of it really stems from this desire or this need for resilience. Resilience is my core superpower, and then there's certain facets of that resilience. And so I have embraced, and each day I have to renew my power of living. I have to renew this power of listening. I have to renew a power of linking to others. And I have to renew daily this power of loving. And all of those build into like my main superpower of resilience, because that is the thing that I have really, you know, needed the most. And it's what I hope we can all gain from this time and from this talk. So I know it's such big dreams, but you know, even if you feel a little bit more of your superpowers at the end of this talk, that would be amazing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this power of living. And this is that story that I mentioned starts in Toronto. Well, not really. Let's go back. So I was born in Scarborough. I'm a Scarborough girl. Scarborough! Are you home saying Scarborough? If you're not, you should be. Scarborough's awesome. But you know, when I was growing up, Scarborough was not Toronto. And we did everything as kids, trying to like get downtown to like the Eaton Center. I went to RH King. Actually, no, I was up in Scarborough at the top at Markham and Sheppard. And my mom, this amazing woman, bought a house, like a new build, up at Markham and Sheppard. And I went to Malvern Junior Public School and Hilliard. And then I went down to RH King. So I'm definitely a Scarborough girl. And when you give these talks, like you don't often give them in Toronto. So it's so awesome that people out there might actually know where I'm talking about. And if you're a real estate agent, you really know where I'm talking about. I actually lived on Verne Crescent, if that matters to anybody. No? Okay. Well, so my mom, you know, she moved from Jamaica back in the 60s. And she moved all the way to Toronto. And she didn't really go to school. Like she didn't even finish high school, but she was able to, don't ask me how, like, you know, I'm not really sure how the rules were back then, but like she never graduated from high school, but was able to become a nurse in England. And back when she was little, there were like 3 choices. You could be, she said she could be like a bus driver. Yeah, was it a bus driver? A nurse or a teacher, and she didn't like driving, and she didn't like teaching, so she decided to become a nurse. Can you imagine? Those were her 3 choices. And so she chose nursing, and she trained in England. And then, so this is back in the 60s, so obviously clearly before the internet, and she got 2 job offers, one in Vancouver, one in Toronto. And she just like looked at a map and she just picked Toronto. And that's how I ended up being here in Canada. I wasn't born yet, but she met my dad here. And she, you know, from that experience for her, like of having so few choices, she always told me when I was growing up that I could be anything I wanted to be in the world, as long as it was a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And I know I have a sense that there are a bunch of other immigrant kids out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. That is like the immigrant parent dream, you know? And when I was coming up, like, I think that really hurt me that was, those were my only choices. But I also realized that for my parents, you know, they just really wanted the best for me. But back then, you know, for me, it was just, I don't know, like I just wanted to make them happy. Everything I did was just to make them happy. So that was like what I endeavored to do throughout life. Just make my parents happy, make my parents happy, make my parents happy, make my parents happy, make my parents happy. And so that's what I did. I became like valedictorian. I was in every single sport. I went out of my way to just create this life, to live this life that my mother had created for me, that my parents had created for me. And you know, she was a single mom, and I was a latchkey kid. She's a nurse, so she's working 12-hour days, and I was home alone most of the time. And I did my best to just get everything that I needed to get done. And it was working. Summer school, night school, extra, like anything to do with the extra credits on every team, just everything. And you know, honestly, like, I know that it was like a good decision. I know that my mom wanted the best for me, but at 14, I was diagnosed with having incredible ulcers. Like my doctor underlined it on the paperwork. You know, he said this 14-year-old has like an enormous, I can't remember the word he used, but a substantial ulcer. And at the time, I didn't even know that I was under stress, because like I just felt like you should just keep doing. And I ended up graduating a year early. I went to school at Carleton University here in Ottawa, which is where I'm like calling you guys from. And you know, I also like kept going overboard. So I took 2 degrees at the same time. Came here to take a degree in legal studies. And it was poli-sci legal studies, and I also took an extra English lit degree at the same time. So I graduated with one in June, and then in September I graduated with my second degree, and then in September I also enrolled in my master's program. And I mean, if anybody ever asked me back then, like what I wanted to do, I never said I wanted to be a singer, because I just knew that my parents would never go for that. And I was just so scared of even like leaving school, you know, like it was crazy. But so I would just kind of just say like, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, stay here for as long as I possibly can and just keep taking more courses. And I think that would have been my plan if I didn't get a phone call during a master's, a grad course. And I just went to talk to my mom on the break, and she told me that she had been diagnosed with cancer, and it was a rare cancer. It's called multiple myeloma. It's a cancer of the plasma cells. And she died like 7 months later. And I think that was my first, I know that was my first real brush with death, you know, sitting by her at Scarborough General Hospital. Like, even throughout that, like, I was so like, you know, like school. So my mom was having like radiation therapy. They said it wasn't worth it for her to do chemo. So she did radiation, and she had lost kidney function. So she was doing dialysis, and I would take classes, teach TA classes, drive to Toronto from Ottawa, take my mom to her therapy sessions, and drive back and keep doing that week after week. Because like, I just couldn't get it out of my head that I needed to like do and be all things to everybody. And then she died. And just like that, like my one champion, you know, in life was gone. And that was really devastating for me. I was 23, only child. And yes, I still remember everything about the day she passed. And I think that really, helped me see that life was short. But I wish that was the only thing, that happened. Like, I ended up getting married really quickly thereafter, and I had a baby. And so, like, a year later, and that really helped me see, like, just how precious life was, it was just like this kind of constellation of events that all happened around the same time. Had this beautiful baby, doing my best to take care of her and be a good mom to her, but also like having this like inkling, this desire to sing, this real true, like, because that's what I really wanted to do, like deep down always. But like with my mom gone, it was just like, maybe I could do this, but still feeling such guilt about like this, knowing that she really wanted me to like be a student and not be a student, but be a successful lawyer, doctor, engineer. So I'm there, I've got this baby. I'm trying to go to my master's courses. The baby won't sleep. I actually ended up losing my voice. I went to go to a speech pathologist, and they said that I was either going to need surgery, like, which could possibly like completely destroy my voice, much like it did to beautiful Julie Andrews. Oh. And or I could stop speaking for a year. So I actually stopped speaking for a year. Well, 10 months. Because can you imagine me not speaking for even 5 minutes? No comment. Don't say anything. But yes, so for 10 months I stopped speaking. So I have this beautiful baby. I can't talk to her. My vocal cords are totally shot. My ulcer has increased. I'm trying to do my master's. Crazy, right? And just completely out of my mind with like, just worry about life. And a friend of mine, a wonderful teacher that I had met at the university here at Carleton University, she suggested that I go see this guru in Montreal, outside Montreal. And I went to see this lady, and she was amazing. And I mean, I was still kind of like, I don't know, about what she's saying. But the biggest takeaway that she gave me was, she said she'd go home, put it out there in the universe, and ask what you should do. And I was like, oh, okay, crazy lady, I can do that. And so I went out and I did that. And on the way home, I asked this question, and I felt like I had this answer, like this overwhelming feeling that no matter what I would do, no matter what I did, I would be okay. Like, if my mom, if there was a God and there was a heaven and she was looking down on me, then she would be knowing that I wasn't feeling well and that I wasn't, like, my ulcers were just killing me and I was under so much stress. She would know that that was not the right path for me, and she'd understand. And that if there wasn't a God and there wasn't a heaven, then she wouldn't care anyway. So I went home and I dropped out of my master's, and my ulcer went away right away, that moment. And I have never felt pain from my ulcer again. And I ended up like calling my dad, to tell him that, to tell this PhD, this biochemist, that I had dropped out of my master's. And I said, I let him know, and he said, well, I can't say that I'm not disappointed. And I'm like, yes, you can. Yeah, you could totally say like, wow, I'm so proud of you for having 2 degrees, for like, owning your own homes, for like having investment properties, for not, for not being in jail or like, in any kind of trouble. Like I could say I'm proud of you for what you've done. That's what I think I had wanted my dad to say. But no, he said that, and then he hung up, and we didn't talk again for another 5 years. But what I got from that experience again is like, life is so freaking short. You have to just live, and you would think that that would be enough. So a dead mother, losing my voice, having a baby. But the thing that really got me was, from that experience, the guru also had me like make this list of all these things that I ever wanted to do, and like I had never dreamt for myself. Like I'd always been like mostly living through other people's dreams. mainly my mom's and my dad's. And so I made this list of like all these things. And they were so like, if I tell you them, you'd be so like, whatever, like what? But one of the things was just like, I wanted to learn to play tennis. You know, I wanted to do fun things. I didn't want to always be like striving for like higher marks and higher, you know? And so I ended up taking tennis lessons, and I had like all these, and I also put like write songs. Yes. So I had all these tennis books and all these songwriting books, and like I was taking tennis lessons, and I was like going to play with friends. And one day I went out and we were playing, and went like it was just a little bit. We went a little bit longer than like normally we would have, and I went to like hit the ball, and I heard my ankle rolled over, and I heard this. And I think if there's anybody who's ever like rolled their ankle, they're out there and they're going, no. And like, that's how I was going, no. It was horrible. So one second, I'm just going to take a quick break just to make sure this thing is still recording. Yes, good. So, so I was so nervous. I had to go to the hospital. It was so painful. And they ended up prescribing me aspirin, and I had never taken aspirin before. And it turns out that I'm allergic to aspirin. And I ended up going back in anaphylactic shock. And they shot me full of adrenaline, and I passed out, and I woke up like a few hours later. And, you know, I went back home after, and I was like still like, you know, reading all these tennis books. And my husband at the time, he said to me, he was like, what are you doing? Like, that ball could have hit you in the throat, you know, like, why don't you, like, you said, you never said you wanted to be a tennis player. You always said you wanted to be a songwriter. Like, why don't you write a song? And I was like, fine then. And I ended up writing like all this music from like this anger. And it became all the music that was on my first CD that ended up being nominated for a Juno. And that one situation, like, just again completely changed my life. And I realized like just how important it is to just live now, you know, to just drop out of whatever it is that you're doing that you're not happy with. So I'm not saying don't be a real estate agent. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, you know, to follow your dream. And your dreams can be anything. It used to be when I gave this talk that like I felt like, you know, everybody has a creative side, and so they should like, you know, embrace their creativity. But now I realize like not necessarily. Like your dream, you might be like making copies and you want to be doing spreadsheets, you know, you might be out there showing homes, but you really want to be showing commercial properties. You might be doing homes, but you really want to be involved in development. I don't know what your particular goals are, but you do. You know, you can feel it. I felt it. I can still feel the things that are kind of like, just like, Kellylee, do us. You know, the things that give you like that joy and happiness. And I really think it's so important to just like drop out and live now. So that's one of the things that I do, you know, every day. And the way that I do that is I listen. And so that is the second thing that I work on to continuously renew on a daily basis. So listening. I try to make it my goal to listen to my inner voice. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So in January 2013, I made a New Year's resolution to listen to my inner voice. And I had a doozy every year. So of course, like whenever I make these New Year's resolutions, I don't really think they last even a week. I'm not sure about you. Maybe you have got like this whole resolutions thing down. But for me, it's like, you know, I can't even find my New Year's resolution from this year. I don't even know if I did any. I might have given up on them. But in 2013, I had this one. It was like to listen to my inner voice. And by June, I still really hadn't done that. And well, I should say by May, because this story really highlights how important listening to your inner voice is. I was in the kitchen and I was cleaning up after dinner, as I do, because I'm a mom and that's what moms do. And I guess I should tell you where I used to live. Again, I just love this because I normally don't give this talk to real estate agents, so like they probably like wouldn't have a sense. But so I live out in the country. We decided that we wanted to leave the city and move to some acreage. So we bought this beautiful 3,300 square foot concrete like slab. It was on like bedrock, so on Canadian Shield. Windows like straight across, stack wall, built built into a hill, sloping steel roof, you know. It was beautiful. It was built by the homeowners 20 years ago. The guy was like 80 and he put on his steel roof himself. Like he was just crazy. 57 acres. This house was beautiful. And it was funny because I had written down that I wanted to live in a loft style home in New York City. And we ended up spending like maybe 6 weeks in New York that year that we bought it back in 2003, I want to say. So we spent like some time in New York City and then ended up moving into this kind of loft style space in the middle of the country because my husband wanted to live in the middle of the sticks. Beautiful place, loved it. However, this house tried to kill me. I was washing the dishes, and so this is the funny part of the story. And at first, I never really wanted to tell this part because it sounds kind of kooky, but it's what happened to me. So I was, you know, like when you're washing, you finished up, and the counter, and I'm like pushing the water in from the counter into the sink. You know, so I'm doing only people who actually clean will know what I am talking about. So I'm cleaning the counter, pushing the water in, and it's during a lightning storm, and like I did not. So other people are probably like shouting, "Don't do that!" But I did not attend that class in school where they gave you the lightning rules. So I don't know. I did not know at the time the lightning rules. So I will tell it to other people who maybe don't know. But I'm laughing now, but I was not laughing then. I was standing like barefoot in front of a window on concrete floor. I had wet hands. I was washing the dishes. These are all things you should never do. The only thing I was not doing, I'll have you know, was I was not on the phone or using some kind of electronics. But yeah, so, and I mean, like, later on somebody said, oh, you know, you had a sponge in your hand too. Don't they use sponges in electrocutions for conduction? I'm like, yeah. So anyways, lightning storm, I'm washing the dishes and I heard a voice. And the voice said, Kellylee, go and leave the dishes for later. And go and sit on the couch and leave the dishes for later. That was it. And I was like, I'm almost done, you know? And then it's not like I hear voices all the time. But not 30 seconds later, I'm pushing the water in, and then boom, the lightning hits the roof of the house and the charge goes through the pipes up through the side of the sink. And just the moment that my hand met the sink was when that all happened. And all I remember is just like throwing the sponge. And my family says that I shouted, and then everybody came running. And then I remember going, because we had like really long halls. So I remember like walking down this long hall and going to my bed. And then I remember just lying there. And then there were these faces, like my family all around me. We had a big king size bed, so they were all around me. And they're like, Mom, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm just going to sleep. And then I went to sleep and I woke up 12 hours later, which is interesting because it was 6 p.m. Why would I be asleep at 6 p.m.? And I never slept 12 hours. I still don't even sleep 12 hours, you know? But I was just like, a goner. And it's funny because like we just didn't, like we lived out in the country, like we didn't have like a habit of going to like the doctors very much, or like, you know, so it never, I don't know why my family didn't take me to, or my husband didn't take me to the emerge right away. But I mean, I was sleeping, I was out. And when I woke up, my heart was just like, you know, and I remember being so angry. Like my body just like my over the next couple of days, my body just kind of like just curled in on itself, you know. And I ended up going to the doctor later, and the only, you know, and talking to like specialists who like have dealt with lightning and electrocution by conduction, which is what happened to me. And you know, my leg started to twist in, and this side of my face, you know, was a bit frozen. This eye, very hard to close, very hard to open, very hard to cut my food. Just like I had what I would call the claws, you know. It was just so hard to do things with my hands, to grip things, to even turn my wheels of my wheelchair. And yeah, I remember being so angry, just so angry. Because, I mean, like if you're gonna, like inner voice, if you're gonna like give me messages, like, if you're gonna send me messages, like it should be like, Kellylee, get down, you're about to be hit by lightning. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's what I think. I think like if you're gonna send me messages, you need to be clear. Like, not like, oh, go and sit down and leave the dishes for later. But what I learned from that experience is that when God or the universe or whomever you believe in, if anything at all, when you get those messages, those inklings, that intuition, it usually isn't like, that person's a murderer, or, you know, or that person's gonna steal all of your life savings, or things like that. Usually for me, it's like more gentle things, you know, like I need to listen to the small things, like, hey, go and sit down on the couch for later, which was like, hey, go and take a break, do something for yourself, you know. But I was looking for some big, bad, you know, warning. And that is not how my inner voice communicates with me. So I've really had to learn to listen, you know, from that experience. And how I cultivate that on a daily basis is I journal. And journaling has become such a huge experience for me. I journal in a very personal way. I speak to the universe or God through writing. I talk about the things that matter to me, and that's where I find, like, you know, I work my ideas out. And as I listen, because I realize, like, if I don't listen on the small things, like, hey, you know, let's go this way, and hey, like, hey, maybe grab that umbrella today, you know, it's not saying to me like you're gonna be like completely soaked and like through to your bra, like, you know, for your interview, if you don't take that umbrella, and you're gonna be so embarrassed. That's not what the message is. The message is like, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea to take this umbrella? And you take the umbrella and you benefit from it. And there are so many like little ways that happens for me, and I'm seeing it more and more. But I couldn't listen before. Like, I was really good at listening to other people's voices. You know, I was really good at listening to what my mom said, to what other people in authority say. I listen to the voices in my head that say bad things about me, you know, but to listen to that small inner voice that is actually advocating for the good things in my life, that has been something that really has been coming clearer and clearer for me the more I journal and write. So right, we talked about, you know, first how important it is to live. And so that's why I continue to just take these risks where I can, you know, to jump and to listen is the second skill, the second superpower. And I cultivate that daily by journaling. So the third thing that has really had such a huge impact in my life, this third superpower, is this this ability to link with others. And I want to talk to you about like why it's been such a huge, important thing for me. Because I feel like I'm talking to my people. Why is that? I feel like you might be overachievers like I am. You know, I, like you, earn my money on a daily basis through the contracts that I get, through the business that I earn, through my own hard work. And so that means that if it's a birthday and there's a gig, I'm most likely going to be doing the gig. If you're having a party and I need to finish an album, I'm most likely going to be finishing the album. And I have a feeling that you might be like me. If a contract comes in and an offer comes in and somebody wants to buy a house, I have a feeling you're going to be doing the offer. You're not going to the baseball game. And, that has an effect. It has definitely had an effect on my life. And I didn't really see it at the time. I really felt like this journey that I'm on, to be a musician, to hopefully like be a light to as many people as possible, and now to speak and to share my story. That seemed like a gift and also it's like I'm a single mom. I'm earning money. I'm trying to like create like a life for my family. And so there seemed to be like a very, very good reason to be saying, I'm sorry I can't make your birthday, but I will make it up to you. But it also meant that like I wasn't really getting to see my friends as much, and I wasn't really getting to be with community and with my family very much. And you get to know how important family and friends and your community is when the chips are down. Now in 2015, I was still healing from the lightning strike. And I was out of the wheelchair now, but I was still having difficulty with my hands, with what I called the claws. And I was, my energy levels would be up and down. I came back home from a really big tour in France, like opening for John Legend and other big artists and Erykah Badu. And I was taking a bath, as one does, because that's my happy place. And I fainted when I stood up and I hit my head. Yes, back in that house that was trying to kill me, which we no longer live in, sadly. Oh, I miss that place. But yeah, so I ended up fainting. I hit my head, and I, luckily I didn't fall under the water. Like I fell sitting, and my kids ran in. At this time, it was just me and my kids living together, and that was my second brain injury. After one that I never even rested from. I went right back out on the road after being hit by lightning because I needed to make money. We didn't have enough money. Was house rich, cash poor, and we didn't have any rental, like income property anymore. And so I was really having to make ends meet, and I needed to be out there performing. So I went out in my wheelchair, I couldn't even hold my microphone, So when I hit my head, I was feeling a lot better, like I'm able to walk again, but I still wasn't really that great. And I hit my head the day before my album was released. And the day that my album was released was an album with a French label, Universal Music, France. And it was the day that the terrorists attacked Bataclan, which is a club which was near where I was going to be releasing my album. And again, like my whole world changed, but obviously so many other people's worlds changed at the label, the management company that I was working with. People lost their lives. It was just a very challenging and heartbreaking experience for so many people. And I had now this head injury, and all of my touring, everything that I had, been a part of planning for the next little period to release my album was then canceled. And for 2 years, I was home in bed. And it's funny because when people talk about the pandemic and when we were first doing like the interviews, people would be like, oh, how are you like coping? And I would be like, well, I kind of already know how to do this because, you know, during the pandemic, like I was in bed. Sorry, during the pandemic, during my head injury, I was in bed for months. Just like, you know, dark room, could not deal with light, couldn't deal with the computer screen, just really dizzy, sometimes having to like crawl along the ground to go to the bathroom. It was a very stressful, strenuous experience. And obviously I had no money because I had not saved. I had no benefits. I had no savings plan. You know, we'd come upon hard times. And you know, when I look back, we went to, like, I remember still like the first time we went, not I didn't go, somebody went on my behalf, went to get food from the food bank. I still remember going for my first welfare check. And I remember crying there, like I think I might cry now, just saying like, I have 2 degrees. I should not be here. And like I've had like lots of money. Like I've sold so much money in real estate, you know? Like we had bought a side-by-side duplex and severed them and split them. I sold my mom's single family home in Scarborough. And we had bought a triplex, which we had renovated and flipped. And then we had poured all that money into business that didn't go so well. And so, you know, I can definitely see like just to see like that like rise and that fall was just so humbling. And to have to take that help, but to know that we needed that help. But before we even got to that stage, like that stage was like a year later. What I'm going to tell you about my community and this desire and this need to link is that a friend of mine, Amanda Martinez, who is a wonderful, beautiful singer in Toronto, and I hope you know her. And if you don't, I hope you get to know her. She put together a GoFundMe for me, and she raised like over $40,000. And she gave us that money so that my family and I could live on that for a year. And that's what we did. And then we went to welfare. And some friends of mine got together and they found because we were living out in the country far away from services and healthcare. And they completely packed up our home and moved us to Ottawa proper, near hospitals, into a home that was empty. And they created a website where they all got together, a bunch of people, and on every single day they would decide who was going to take me to the doctors, who would take the kids to music lessons, who would bring food, who would go grocery shopping. They organized our life for us. And it was just an amazing show of support from my community. And I mean, they had always been there, even though I was too busy for the most part to see how important it was to be connected and to stay connected. But that one experience taught me so much about how important people are, humans are. You know, I was working and I was earning and I was creating in my business, and I was a good human while I was doing it, but I was a disconnected human. And learning about how important that superpower of linking with others is, how important it is to continue to make these bridges. I think many of us have seen how important that has been in the pandemic time. And that's where I learned that during my own personal struggles. And so what I do now, you know, because I just realize how much community fosters that resilience and how much it matters, is that I make a point, like I have it scheduled in my calendar, you know, to call people like on a regular basis. I have people that I call once a week. I might have people that I call once a day. I have people that I make sure I reach out to a couple times a month. Humans that are there for me regardless of whether I'm a singer or an entertainer or a mom or a sick person in a bed. Like people who I know are going to count for me and who I hope I count for them. I mean, I hope, and I know they are people that I want to continue to help in ways that I can. I want to give back, you know, and I also recognize just how important like my kids are, you know. I mean, like it's so obvious to parents, you know that your kids are important, but then what are you doing to show them? And I hope that the pandemic experience has helped many of us continue to create those bridges, and I'm doing my best. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not awesome. I'm not even even a little bit perfect at it, but I'm doing, I think, better than I was a few years ago, and that's like my goal. So that is like the next superpower. And the last superpower that I want to talk to you about that I have continued to like to cultivate on a daily basis is my power of loving. I see myself as a super lover, and I don't mean it in a, you know, wah wah kind of way. Don't ask me what wah wah is. But yeah, I see myself as a super lover. And what I mean by that is that like I constantly try to figure out ways to find love for the things around me and for the people around me and for myself. You know, like I found that I was really lacking that ability to love myself. And it's so corny sounding, right? Like, and we read about it all the time, and people are always like, you really need to nurture yourself. You really need to like think about loving yourself. But it's true. You really do need to. So how do I do that? I do this thing that I call making a happy list. And so that's what I'd like you to do today. I would like you to take a few minutes and make a happy list. And so a happy list are all the things that you like to do that make you happy. Now, if I were here with you, I would force you. No, I would just ask you nicely to get out your phone, because the phone's generally with you all the time, and take out the notes section, you know, the notes section, and write happy list. Not that anybody actually writes like that anymore, unless you do, which is totally okay, but write happy list. And then write down the things that you do and that you don't do that you would like to be doing that make you happy. Like, so I'll give you an example. Yoga, drinking tea, taking hot baths, taking a walk, going outside daily, being with friends, talking to friends, watching movies, reading books, listening to music. Those are all things that are on my happy list. So take some time, and I want you to take a minute right now and just write those out. And if you're at home and you're not even doing it, you could do it right now. You could even just make a note of 3 things. Yeah, what's that thing that, really just makes you really happy when you do it? Or who are those people that you like to be with? Maybe your list is a list of happy people that you like to be around. Okay, so I hope you got a few things written down on your list, and this is a working document. This is something that you can constantly be adding to as life goes. I still have my happy list on my phone. And what I want you to do is don't just have this list and oh, that's nice, and just look at it here and then. What I think really makes this list powerful is incorporating, looking at your schedule, which I know is super busy, and I know you don't have a lot of time, but what I want you to do is figure out how can you make those things a part of your week? How can you make those things a part of your day? I'll give you an example. Like when I wake up, I journal, I meditate, and I pray. And then I flip over and I do yin yoga in bed every day. I need that so that I don't get the claws. You know, like that's part of my physiotherapy. So I do these stretching and these long poses, but it's just so good for my soul. And then I have my breakfast and I go and take a bath. I usually have tea because I love to drink tea. So I have tea with my breakfast. And then I take a bath every day. I have a bath every day. And if I'm lucky, I have bubbles in that bath or a bath bomb or Epsom salts or something. But I love taking a hot bath because I love the feeling of that hot water on the back of my neck. And that is something that I make a part of my daily schedule. So, you know, this is this goal that I'm talking about, this desire to figure out what can you do on a daily basis to really embrace this sense of resiliency and to like almost regenerate on a daily basis your superpowers, right? Because it's like your phone, you got to plug it in. You got to plug in these batteries, like these computers, all this stuff is going to die if I don't keep it all like charged up. And how do I charge myself up? Like I told you, I take risks so that I remember to keep living. I build that superpower of living. I journal so that I keep my listening ears and I hear what that inner voice is trying to tell me. I link on a daily basis by keeping in touch with my friends and family on a schedule. I mean, it's the best way for me because otherwise I will forget. And when I forget, I lose connection. And when I lose connection, I just don't feel myself, you know, and I'm not myself. And then finally, I continue to love on a daily basis, not just other people, but also myself. And so those are the superpowers that I have gained. And all of those superpowers help me be unbreakable. I gave my heart, I gave my time, I gave my mind, won't give a spark, and give a spark, 'cause I'm not cold, still born, I love her from the start. Still there, still care, I'm a warrior of the heart. Unbreakable, unbreakable. I'm not afraid to open my heart. I'm not afraid to open my heart. Ooh, I'm not afraid to open my heart. I'm not afraid to restart. Unbreakable, 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 unbreakable. Thanks very much for spending this hour with me. I hope that you are well. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime on social media. If you have any questions, you just want to share a little bit of your story, that would be cool. And again, my name is Kellylee Evans. It has been an honor to celebrate this momentous occasion with you. I hope that you have gained some superpowers in this talk. And if not, I hope you're thinking about, hope you're thinking about just how resilient you can be, you are, and how unbreakable you are. Because if you're still here today, that's because you too are unbreakable. Thanks, everyone.
A round of applause for Kellylee Evans. Thank you for taking part in the Success Mix series for our anniversary celebrations. We're not done. Tomorrow, Mark Bowden is next up to speak. Mark is a human behavior expert, and he'll talk about a range of communication techniques to stand out, win trust, build credibility every time you speak. Expect tons of takeaways that will help you succeed in your business. I'll see you tomorrow, November 26th. Mark Bowden.